right, so this is a pretty long lesson. It's a pretty long lesson if we were in person too. So if you look on in your notes, the page that's actually a new page, and it says no matter what form we have, the first point we always want to get is the vertex. So what we've looked at so far is standard form. The vertex form, it's actually easier to find the vertex because we just pluck the H and the K off. And really that's like the X and the Y of the vertex. So the one that's inside the parentheses, it's always the opposite sign of what you see. The one that's outside the parentheses is always the same. This is also on your reference page. So you won't have to dig through all your notes. You could just look at your reference page, like when it came time for a test or something. So if I'm looking at these two examples, and I'm just asked, the only thing I want to know first is just what is the vertex? So the vertex, instead of having to use a formula and find the axis of symmetry first, the vertex here, I take the sign here, I change that one, make that +4. This guy out here stays the same. So that vertex is at 4, 5. That's the vertex. Now, if I want to know the axis of symmetry, remember that the axis of symmetry always cuts straight through the parabola and goes through the vertex, and it's always x equals. So in this case, what does x equal? Oh, x equals 4. That's my axis of symmetry. Is x equals 4. So try the one at the right. What's the vertex? The vertex would be -3, -7. And then our axis of symmetry, just to abbreviate that a little bit, would be x is equal to -3. In a lot of ways, depending on what we're looking for, our vertex is going to be easier. So you have a couple other pages in your notes, and so we'll go and practice a few there. All right, so this is K5, and I first want to point out that if we have a function that is f of x is equal to x squared, that's like the most basic parabola. It would start at 0, 0, and then when I plug a 1 in, I get 1, and when I plug a 2 in, I get 4. Okay? Well, it doesn't really hug the line like that, but I'm a terrible artist. But it would be at 0, 0, okay? So the most basic one, this vertex is at 0, 0. Now multiplying, if I multiply 0 times 8, I still get 0. So if it's only x squared, so there's only an a, there's no b, there's no bx, and there's no c, the vertex is still going to be at 0, 0. Okay, the vertex is still going to be at 0, 0. And then we just need to plug in one number to plot a point on the graph. So 0, 0, and now if I put in a 1, 1 squared is 1, and 1 times 8 is 8. And then IXL makes the other side of my parabola for me. So that's why I say pretty easy. So this time there is again no bx, there's no c, So it's going to start at 0, 0. Then I'm plugging in a 1. So to find out where I go next, if I do negative 2 times 1 squared, well, 1 squared is 1, that's going to be negative 2. So 1, negative 2 is going to be my other point that I'm going to plot. So I started at 0, 0. That's our vertex. Zero, 0, and then 1, negative 2. So finally, this time, we're not going to be at 0, 0. So there is no x in the middle. So when there's just something happening out here with this negative 3 and there's no x's in the middle, it's going to be moved down 3. So think about if you plug 0 in, you would get negative 2 times 0 squared minus 3. You would get 0, and then your answer would be negative. So then 0 minus 3, our ordered pair would be 0, negative 3. That's going to be my vertex. So when there's no x, but there is a c, that's the y of the vertex. To clear that off so we can make our graph here. So I'm going to go to negative 3. And then some of you have probably noticed you can just use this a value almost like it's the slope. If I go down 2 and over 1. Because if we plug in a 1, negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. And then IXL is mirroring that on the other side. So if I try to do remember, even if you try to use your axis of symmetry, there is no b, so this is 0 divided by 3. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 0. And if I plug 0 in, I get 0, negative 6. So that's my vertex. So no x's in the middle. This whole thing has just been shifted down 6. And then when I want to find a second point, I'm going to plug in a 1. So 3 times 1 squared minus 6 is negative 3. So then my other point is going to be 1, negative 3. We do have to plot the vertex first on IXL. So the vertex was 0, negative 6, and then 1, negative 3. And then just kind of confirm, does it look like it's supposed to? Well, it's going up, and it's going up pretty fast, yeah, and it does cross the y at negative 6. And then we get into, now this is in vertex form. So remember, that's what I just showed you in those notes. And in vertex form, you're going to change that sign in the parentheses, keep the sign that's on the outside. So that is our vertex. Okay, that is our vertex. And then we can plug in to find another point. We can also use A like a slope. So just go 1 point over and go up 4. So like up 4 over 1. Since we only have to make one other point. And if you did plug in 8, you will get the same answer, I promise. All right, so I'm going to have to clear that off so that I can answer that question. So we said our vertex is at 7, negative 8. 7, negative 8. and then we're going up 4 and over 1. Now, again, I could put the next place over would be 8. If we plugged an 8 in, I think you'll see that it still works. 8 minus 7 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Ta-da! Negative 4. Okay? And then it's mirrored on the other side. And then that gives us enough to make, they've done the work of making the rest of our parabola. So when it's in vertex form, change the inside, keep the outside. So negative 7 for my x, positive 5. So my vertex is way up here. And then negative 3 is my a. So if I go down 3 and over 1, and that's my parabola. Again, I could plug in the points, but it's going to be simpler to just follow that a to get the next point. And the reason that works is because you would be getting a 1 inside the parentheses. You can't keep going down 3 over 1 because it's not a straight line. So change the inside, keep the outside. Let's make sure I got that in the right spot. So I went left 8 and down 5. And then I need to go down 2 because my a value is negative 2. So I know it's opening down. So down 2 and over 1. So again, this is much simpler than if you had to do it on paper. It would be a lot more work on paper. Let's look at this one with this negative out in front. So I still switch the inside, keep the outside. So 4, 9 would be my vertex. And then because that's a negative on the outside, that's the same as negative 1. So I can just go down 1 and over 1. And if I plug 5 in, because that point is actually 5, 8, if I plug a 5 in for x, I should find that I would get 8 as the answer. Again, those problems are in K5. And as I skipped ahead, this is just more of the same. Change it, keep it, down 1 over 1. So change it, keep it, negative 8, negative 5. And my outside number is negative 5, so I'm going to go down 5 and over 1. So I'm not seeing anything where that's really changing other than this one's, I got to 75 and it's a little messy. So change it, keep it, so 6 and then positive 1/2. And then down 7 from that. So from 1/2 would be negative 6 1/2. So 13 over 2, take your 13, divide it by 2 on your calculator. You find out that's 6 1/2 or 6.5. So positive 6.5 and up 4. And then when we go down 8, that takes us to negative 4. And we go over 1, and we're halfway between. Since we started in the middle, when we go over 1, we're also in the middle. All right, so that is your lessons on parabolas. Again, you can ignore the part that says homework that's in your notes. Those are just some additional notes so that if we wanted to do some of these by hand and have some examples.